Well, hello. Today I'm going to talk about my impression of Heaven and Earth by Yes. I don't have it with me to show you. I downloaded it. Okay, so before I get into this discussion, I want to quote something from one of my favorite books ever, Fight Club by Chuck Palahniuk. It says here, Tyler Durden. If you've seen the movie, that would be Brad Pitt's character. What you have to consider, what you have to consider, he says, is the possibility that God doesn't like you. Could be God hates us. This is not the worst thing that can happen. How Tyler saw it was that getting God's attention for being bad was better than getting no attention at all. Maybe because God's hate is better than his indifference. So, what does this have to do with this Yes album? Well, let's talk a little bit about the album and I'll hopefully remember to get back to my point. So, this came out in July 2014, and this features a slightly adjusted lineup from what we had a few years ago with Fly From Here, which an album I really enjoyed. It had some good songs and it had a lot of potential. You Fly From Here, you're like, wow, these guys are on the right track. Less than perfect album, but they're on the right track. They're going in a good direction here. The singer on that album was Benoit David, who really didn't sound a whole lot like Jon Anderson, although I think to be in Yes you have to have a little bit of that high register. So this new version of Yes, of course, has Chris Squire, Alan White, Steve Howe, Jeff Downs, and then John Davidson, who I would like to call from this point on Discount Jon Anderson. His voice is incredibly similar to Anderson's in many ways, but it really lacks the depth, especially the way Jon Anderson, as his singing over the last 10-15 years, he's had a little trouble hitting those high register vocals, but there's also just been a little more depth in his voice, a little more emotional depth. I have nothing against this John Davidson guy, except he seems to have been hired mainly for that quality, his ability to sound like the other John. So, how about the songs? Well, it starts off with Believe Again, which actually started out a little bit interesting to me because it had Steve Howe playing. I think it sounded like some kind of volume pedal to his guitar. So you had kind of these swells and sweeps coming in. I thought, okay. They're starting off kind of mellow. They're starting off kind of slow. And really, that's the same tone every single song takes in this. They're all slow, just there's nothing dynamic to them. Now I get it. They're if you've read enough about Yes, there's kind of a conflict between doing the progressive rock thing where you create albums and you have to have a big statement, and creating pop songs. Yes, had tried to write pop songs throughout most of their career, and then in Tormato, and even going for the one with Wondrous Stories, Tormato, Drama, and of course when we get to 90125, they're really a pop rock band with some progressive elements. And I do like the whole Trevor Rabin or Rabin era of Yes, so I'm not picking on just being commercially successful or accessible as... I'm not saying that's just in itself a negative. The album sounds a lot like Open Your Eyes to me, at least some of the tracks. It also sounds a lot like Tormato. Now, this was produced by Joe Don Baker, who did a bunch of movies like the Walking Tall movies. Roy Thomas Baker, a producer who has a huge resume. Probably should get some of the credit for developing Queen sound. He also was the producer on the Paris Sessions, which was a Yes album that was quite a bit of it was recorded and it never came out. And boy, if you listen to the CDs that have the tracks on there, it was not working out very well. This is Heaven and Earth, by the way, is their best-selling album since Talk. Not sure that's something to be proud of. The game Step Beyond, as in One Step Beyond. Unfortunately, there is that feeling in this whole album of themes, lyrics you've heard before. And then To Ascend, which has a nice acoustic aspect to it. But again, everything here seems flat and uninspired. Honestly, this is the first Yes album I didn't rush out and buy in the first day or two that it came out. And I called in sick to my boss back in 1987 or whatever, so I'd go pick up Big Generator at Tower Records on Broadway in Sacramento, California. I was too sick to come in. And so, that album cost me, I forget how much albums were back then, $12, something like that. Cost me $12, 45 minutes of my life, and another $40 of lost work. So I don't want to get into every single song. They're just so vague in its lyrics. Musically, most of it's vague. I do kind of like the very end, last song. Did I write down the name of it? Subway Walls. Musically, this song had actually a lot going for it. I was like, wow, okay, it's kind of a little bit of a jam session sound to it. And, the Alan White, Chris Squire rhythm section, which has been asleep through the rest of this album, it's like they woke White up. Hey, do some drumming. Don't we pay you to drum? Unfortunately, John Davidson's voice kicks in, and there's very silly lyrics. And honestly, if it stayed an instrumental, I would have really liked this piece of music. Is it the worst Yes album? That's a tough one. Yes has had some really rough albums. It's one of their worst. It's pleasant enough. It's listenable. As a matter of fact, that may be what holds it above certain other albums. Is you can sit and turn it on, and listen to it, and sleep or talk to other people, or you could put Heaven and Earth on, and then put on some headphones and listen to Paranoid by Black Sabbath. That's what I would do. But it is listenable. And so I think I've said all I really want to say. Also, the artwork, while it's beautiful, Roger Dean, we all love Roger Dean. It should represent the album somehow, and in this case, it absolutely has nothing to do with the album. They should have just had get an old Peter Max piece of artwork, and blandest. They should have called the Peter Max estate, said, we need the blandest piece of artwork you can give us. So, why did I quote Fight Club? Because, honestly, we'll be talking about Emerson, Lake and Palmer's Love Beach until the end of human history, because it is so horrible. It is Love Beach by Emerson, Lake and Palmer is just this ghastly, horrible album. Heaven and Earth is forgettable. And to me, that's the worst thing you want when you make an album, is to have it forgettable. You really like everybody to love it. Okay. But people hate it. Like Batman and Robin, Joel Schumacher's Batman and Robin, George Clooney as Batman. That movie's horrible. It's so bad, you gotta talk about it. We'll never forget that movie. We will forget Heaven and Earth. And just looking at my notes real quick. As a side note, Steve Howe himself said this about the yin and yang, hot, cold, the two extremes. That's what he said that Heaven and Earth was about, this whole album. And that doesn't exist. It's all just kind of light rock pop. And it doesn't even jump at you like 90125 or even Big Generator, which had some songs that at least, I don't know, maybe they all drank some Red Bull when they did some songs and back then or something, but at least they had some energy. So I give it maybe 1.5 out of 5. Really, it's listenable. You can tolerate it. I think Yes is a band capable of much better than music to be tolerated. So what I think the biggest problem here, though, let me just I gotta go kind of off the subject for a second. is a problem that's existed in a lot of Yes's changes in the lineup. Now, in retrospect, I liked the changes in lineup. I remember getting Relayer, not when it came out, but you work your way through, become a fan, you work your way through. And I was kind of excited. What's Patrick Moraz going to bring to this? And at first I thought, well, Patrick Moraz is the guy from the Moody Blues, so what's he going to bring? He brought a lot to that, and that's a crazy, Relay's a crazy album. I love it. And even Drama, where John Anderson's gone and Trevor Horn's singing, and there's almost almost not heavy metal sound to it, but it is more metallic sounding. And again, they did a shift. There was Roger Dean artwork, but it was quite a bit different looking than his previous artwork. At least his previous art with Yes. The problem is when Rick Wakeman's with Yes, he won't play anything from Relayer. He won't play anything. He basically won't play anything that he was not a part of, except for the oldest material, like from the Yes album and Time and a Word and Yes. Well, okay, that's really a thorn in your side when you're a band and you continue producing with other people left. John Anderson is famous for not wanting to perform anything from Drama. Steve Howe does not like to perform anything from the Trevor Rabin era. And this seems more about ego than art. And I realize he does now occasionally play Owner of a Lonely Heart, but and maybe a few other of those songs, but it's not something he wants to do, and it's not something he likes to do, and he would just as soon not do it. The problem is you're in a band that's constantly changing membership. There's only a handful of albums where they keep the same lineup for more than 2 albums. I'm trying to think of one where they've done that. It's hard to say. So, my point, and I'm getting to a point, is this. I can almost bet, I would bet, that very soon John Anderson will rejoin Yes. They'll get over their differences, they'll hug, they'll cry, they'll bring out big sacks of money or whatever it takes. John Anderson will join Yes again. Now, what that means is, thankfully, you won't have to hear anything from Heaven and Earth live. That's good. But then you have Fly From Here, which is actually a good album. It has some good tracks. Won't be hearing those anymore either. Yes has, because of the insistence on old members when they come back, of the rest of the band divorcing the band of their other artistic works, it ceased to become anything progressive. So that's kind of my little soapbox about this. A forgettable album that amazingly I've spent 13 minutes talking about. Thank you.